Gearing up for the warmer days ahead? If that includes shopping for a reliable new car, SUV, or truck, there's no better time or place than Toyota's We Make It Easy sales event. You'll find great deals like huge cash back offers, low APRs, and low payment leases on many of Toyota's most popular models, including Camry, Corolla, Prius Prime, Highlander, and even Supra. So see your Toyota dealer today. We make it easy. Toyota, let's go places. Gearing up for the warmer days ahead? If that includes shopping for a reliable new car, SUV, or truck, there's no better time or place than Toyota's We Make It Easy sales event. You'll find great deals like huge cash back offers, low APRs, and low payment leases on many of Toyota's most popular models, including Camry, Corolla, Prius Prime, Highlander, and even Supra. So see your Toyota dealer today. We make it easy. Toyota, let's go places.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 397. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, sorry there was no morning update today. I was a bit caught up trying to figure out why in the hell the podcast is no longer on iTunes. Almost on cue, right after I talked about censorship, the podcast is no longer available on iTunes. Go ahead and punch in the Jeffrey Epstein Show iTunes into your search browser, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, there's some people who are saying that they're still getting the episodes uploaded via Apple Podcasts, but even when you punch that in, you don't see it. So I'm guessing that if you haven't been subscribed to the show previously, there's some sort of shadow ban in the Apple Podcast realm and just an all-out ban in iTunes. So there we are, folks, just like I told you, just like I said it was going to happen. Now, I always tell you, I'm not a psychologist, so, I can't really speak on this. Well, this is some shit I can speak on. I understand the stakes, and I understand what's going on here. And I understand how dangerous it is to staunch the flow of independent media. But a lot of people don't understand this, obviously. And a lot of people want to convolute the defense of freedom of speech and add it up into one gigantic pile of shit with Donald Trump. And it's ludicrous, okay? I guess Noam Chomsky is a right-winger. I guess he's just a hardcore right-wing Donald Trump supporter, huh? It's an absolute joke. Anyway, we're going to talk more about that on Sunday during the live stream. And I figure that'll be the perfect forum for it. So if you want to talk about censorship or you want to try and argue the point that it's a good thing, then Sunday on the live stream, that's the perfect spot for you to show up so we could have a nice discussion about it. Because I'll tell you what, folks, it will not be long before they start purging everybody who doesn't get in line with the narrative of the legacy media. And it's amazing to me how anyone following this Jeffrey Epstein case who says that they're ardent about justice and they're passionate about justice can also at the same time cheer on the very same authorities who were protecting Jeffrey Epstein for decades as they go around squashing people's voices. It is absolutely absurd, and I don't understand how you could possibly be productive throughout the day with how tiring the mental gymnastics of juggling all of that must be. So, we're going to get a lot deeper into that Sunday. If that's something you're not interested in, then you don't want to download Sunday's live stream. But if you want to talk about censorship some more, and you want to talk about the perils of it, and how it's already impacting us here at the Jeffrey Epstein Show, then Sunday is the place to do just that. And hopefully you guys will all be joining me. Last week was another smashing success, over 2 hours, a lot of participation, and a lot of it good back and forth conversation, people sharing good points. And And that's what I hope we can do on Sunday as well. Go back and forth and discuss the pitfalls of all of this. All right, folks, so we have a long article tonight, so I'm not going to get too much deeper into the weeds about my situation and the situation the show finds itself in. But what I will do is dive right back into the money chase. We're going to talk a little bit more about the FinCen files tonight, and this is a pretty good wrap-up of some of the impact that the FinCen files has had since they were broken. And it's also of note that the FinCen files were a lot smaller as in the amount of documents released, as opposed to the other huge drops, the Paradise Papers, the Panama Papers, etc., etc. So we've learned a whole lot from a very small percentage of the actual documentation that is in the possession of the government, right? But if what we have learned from this little bit tells the story, then things might even be worse than we even imagined. So let's jump into this article from the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Headline: How Our Smallest FinCen File Story Captured the Biggest Data Lessons. Each confidential client profile amounts to only a few hundred words, but the huge data lift involved was emblematic of the entire FinCen files investigation. This article is authored by Delphine Reuter. Unlike previous ICIJ investigations, such as Luanda leaks, Mauritius leaks, or Panama Papers, the FinCen files documents didn't number in the hundreds of thousands or millions. I think it was like 2,100 pages, 2,600 pages. And they were very telling, right? How these financial institutions continue to skirt around the rules, continue to be negligent when it comes to reporting properly, and how the government, up until recently with the new anti-money laundering legislation that was just passed, has pretty much given these people a pass. So it still remains to be seen if this anti-money laundering legislation is going to have any teeth, and we'll see moving forward just what it means, right, as far as bringing these people to heel. In fact, the entire investigation was based primarily on a cache of just over 2,600 documents that BuzzFeed News shared with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and 108 media partners, including more than 2,100 suspicious activity reports, several hundred spreadsheets, a few dozen Word documents, and emails. Now, how much longer before the ICIJ finds themselves in a spot where they're being censored as well, or where they find themselves deplatformed because they're sharing quote-unquote hacked data? Isn't that one of the new terms of service over there at the old swamp we call Twitter? I'm pretty sure it is. So, again, I ask you, do you want a free media, or do you want the packaged bullshit that the legacy media has been pumping down your throats and gaslighting you with for years? You're going to have to make a choice. It's going to be up to you. In the long run, it's going to be up to you. You're the consumer. You're the one that's consuming this content either here or elsewhere, and you're going to have to make the choice. But don't let the size of the leak fool you. It took months of deliberate, meticulous data work and diligent reporting to eke out some of the investigation's big stories and findings, like analyzing the more than $2 trillion in suspicious transactions flagged by U.S. banks or identifying the networks of shell companies used to launder potentially dirty money. And we have went through pretty much all of these stories. Everything that the FinCen files has produced, we have pretty much covered, if it has related even in the smallest way to the overarching of our case, the Jeffrey Epstein case. And what we have found is chilling and disturbing. And it goes a long way to confirm a lot of our beliefs about what was going on behind the scenes with the money laundering, with the douchebaggery in the world of financials. And the FinCen files and the SARS that they produced was just more evidence and more concrete stuffing in the wall, proving that these financial institutions are engaging on large-scale money laundering episodes right under everybody's nose, and nobody is the wiser for the most part. The people that are in the know, the people who are hip to it, are taking part in it, or they're enriching themselves in some way. With any data journalism project, it's important to put a human face to the figures. Our confidential clients feature was a selection of businessmen, fraudsters, and political leaders whose stories appeared in the leaked files. The aim was to show how global banks continued moving billions of dollars around the world for clients they suspected were funding illicit or illegal activities. And we know that that's our guy to a T, right? Definitely 100% to a T. That's the painted image of that bitch-ass punk Jeffrey Epstein. And that's why the FinCen files have been such an ongoing point of discussion here on the podcast. It's been such a huge deal, right? Because it is very important if we're going to build a blueprint that shows the web that connects all of these people financially. It's not, they're not going to just have it right out there for everybody to see. That's why when people are like, well, but what about their taxes? Their taxes say, what does that mean? So what? So somebody's involved in a money laundering scheme, so they're going to claim it on their taxes? Come on, wise up, folks. We quickly discovered that each profile offered a microcosm of the huge amount of reporting and analysis that would eventually go into every story across the entire investigation, whether it was a 7,000-word feature on British shell companies or a 300-word profile of a corrupt politician. Here's what we learned along the way. So, no matter the length of the stories that was published in regards to the FinCen files, all of them proved to be pretty important in my opinion. And when you're following it the way we are, and you're following it in such a almost unbreakable pattern, right? I have the notifications turned on, so anytime there's a new story, I'm all over it. It just shows you that every single thing that they were talking about here, when you start putting the pieces together and adding it up to what we already knew from the other leaks, from other finds, from other cases in regards to the financial world, that the FinCen files were just another nail in the coffin when it comes to the financial world and them trying to act like they are not involved in wide-scale money laundering and the protection of the assets of some of the world's scummiest individuals. The data required reading between the lines, another reason why I enjoy it so much. As you all know, that is the premise of this podcast. I don't make pretend I'm a journalist or none of that nonsense. I'm not out here acting like I'm old Anderson Cooper or we're breaking news like other people do. Other salacious-ass people who are into all kinds of, nonsensical gaslighting and muddying of the waters. That is not what we're doing here. What we do here is we follow the stories as they appear in the news, and we analyze them as they happen. And that calls for a lot of reading in between the lines. The files we were looking at were not the sort of frank exchanges between a client and their trusted wealth manager, accountant, or lawyer that we've seen in past investigations. There were no details of intimate client meetings or clear indications of intentions or motivations. And exactly right, that is not what this was. The SARS are never that. They're never going to give you that full picture. What they're going to do is give you an inroad to spring an investigation onto somebody or to get an idea that they're moving bad money through your bank with the way that they're conducting their transactions. And it's one of the first steps to starting an investigation, right? There are many steps that go into an investigation. This is just one of the first ones. The suspicious activity reports and spreadsheet lists of transactions we accessed were put together by banks' compliance officers reporting their suspicions to the U.S. Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, known as FinCen. These officers often had no direct connection to the transaction or the client themselves, and were often either ill-informed or limited in the amount of details they could provide FinCen. And we've talked about this as well. What happens is, I'll use, again, the sports book as an example. A ticket writer, the very lowest man on the totem pole in the whole entire shop, can initiate a SARC. And what you do is you fill out this report if you think a transaction was shifty, and then that gets sent out in the audit all the way up to your compliance division, and then compliance takes it from there. They enter it into FinCen, and off we go. So there's really no face-to-face like they're talking about here, right? In the reports, there's no conversation between, say, the ticket writer and the compliance officer. But if you read between the lines and you use the template that's been set out previously in the other leaks, it is safe to assume what is going on here. The data we had was also quite patchwork. Most of the files were unstructured narratives outlining officers' suspicions, written into documents from which we could extract some details about transactions. On occasion, we had access to transactional data in spreadsheets. Those files gave us very detailed information from the point of view of the filing bank. Some came in the FinCen files with the corresponding reports. But there is no mandatory format for the transactional data to be filed. Each bank had chosen its own way of presenting the transactional information. Only 46 of these spreadsheets came with contextual narrative files attached. So there's no market standard here, right? Each one of these shops or these banks or these casinos, they all have their own way of dealing with these SARs and filing them and covering them and making sure that they're put into the database. That has to end. There needs to be a uniformed pattern for all of these SARs to be entered into FinCen. And then there needs to be levels, right? The lowest level, make it, green. And then second level, yellow. And then the third highest level, somebody who is probably engaging in some sort of financial crime, have them colored red. And then when you add it into the FinCen system, if it's someone who's red or somebody who is needing of more attention, it automatically pings an agent or something. Look, I'm not a computer programmer. I'm certainly don't have all of the answers. But if you can put a rocket in a terrorist's window 6,000 miles away from America, I'm pretty sure you guys can figure out a system to alert the financial officers at FinCen when some bad shit's coming their way. As a result, the reports had to be treated with a lot of caution, though they still contained a wealth of useful information to use as a starting point. For example, J.P. Morgan Chase reported hundreds of millions of dollars worth of transactions made by Paul Manafort, the former manager of Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, and his associates. The SAR itself wasn't particularly detailed, but we fortunately had access to the corresponding list of transactions, which showed the money flows tied to Manafort and his companions. Before I go any further, I think that of all the pardons Trump has passed out so far, the one to Manafort is the worst. This guy is obviously a financial criminal. I don't care what team he's on. I don't care if he was your campaign manager. It's a bad look. It's gross. It's disgusting. How about some other people who really deserve pardons? How about some people that were involved in quote-unquote illegal gambling? And now that it's legal across the whole country, how about you throw out some pardons that way, Mr. Trump? For each confidential client profile, we had to assess what information we had, what information we needed to get, and then piece it all together. Boy, that sounds familiar, huh? Almost like what we do here on a daily basis about the Jeffrey Epstein case. Put it all together, catalog it, and then, well, the puzzle starts to form, doesn't it? The data was selective. The FinCen files documents represent less than 0.02% of the more than 12 million suspicious activity reports that financial institutions filed between 2011 and 2017. I started at the sportsbook in 2011, and I was there until 2016. So I'm guessing every single one of the SARs I've ever filed is in that FinCen database, huh? Pretty interesting. I wonder if any of those got caught up in this leak. Probably not. Nothing there as far as interest when it comes to big fish or big game like Paul Manafort. According to BuzzFeed News, some of the records were gathered as part of U.S. congressional investigations into Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Others were put together following requests to FinCen from law enforcement agencies. What we had was but a very small window into the world of a few banks who were selectively picking the information they deemed worthy of being reported to the U.S. government. And again, I think that if we used the color code system that I was talking about here a second ago, that it would stop these folks from having cover, right? If you don't put in someone who is a level 3, say a level 3 suspected offender, and it comes out that that person was engaging in money laundering, then everybody involved in not sending that SAR should be looked into, right? Every single person in management who just let that SAR sit there and didn't do anything with it, they should be held responsible. It wasn't possible to pick a bank's famous client and follow a steady trail of information exchanged between them over the years. Nor was it possible to carefully build a complete picture of each bank's relationships with their correspondent clients around the world. A few names of individuals and companies popped up quite quickly. Still, it took a lot of heavy lifting to fill in the blanks. And that's how they want it, right? They do it like this specifically so things are shadowy. That's why they use the shell companies. That's why they're using the LLCs. That's why they use the beards. And that's why, ultimately, they love to structure. For example, we knew Deutsche Bank took an interest in a few companies owned by Ukrainian businessman Ihor Kolomoisky, especially in 2016, when it filed several reports mentioning transactions made by Kolomoisky's Ukrainian International Airlines. You know, it's pretty funny. Seems like every time we talk about money laundering of any kind, the word Ukraine and the country Ukraine pops up. What in the hell is going on over there? And why are our politicians allowing it to occur? Because if you think they're not, you're wrong. How many of them are enriching themselves in the Ukraine? That should probably be a baseline for where we start looking at who the most corrupt sons of bitches are, right? But we couldn't know what exactly prompted the reports to be filed in the first place, whether more reports were filed than those we had, and what happened after they were sent to FinCen. What we had was not dissimilar to the feeling you get when driving on a sparsely lit highway. You can distinguish patches illuminated by streetlights, but you cannot know what lies in the darkness beyond. That is for sure too. Right? It gives us a little peek behind the curtain. And it gives us a little bit more context and more of an idea of what goes on with these mega-rich scumbags. What it most certainly does is shine a spotlight on Jeffrey Epstein completely, though. Every bank mentioned in the FinCen files was a bank that was in bed with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell at some point. And I hope beyond hope, folks, that at some point in time, a reckoning is coming for these people. The data was full of duplicates. One of the things we like to do in the ICIJ data team is to count things. We count documents, we add up amounts, we calculate date ranges, and we classify entities, such as banks, all in the name of contextualizing information and building understanding, just like any sort of good outlet would do. If you're doing an investigation, this is the same thing that a cop would do, a detective, as he's investigating a crime. You got to set everything up, right? Nothing just falls into your lap. Starts with little pieces, little bits of circumstantial evidence. That starts to add up. And once that all adds up, then you have some probable cause. I like to use the analogy of a person collecting shells on the beach. Whereas most people would select the most beautiful or original shells and discard the rest, the data team goes through every shell there is and considers each one against the methodology. In the end, the questions we need to answer are plentiful. Is it useful? Is it representative? Can it be trusted? What can we safely say, and what don't we have enough information about? Boy, who does that sound like, huh? What do I always say, folks? It is not what I know, it is what I can prove, at least circumstantially. So that's one thing that you can guarantee from me. If I'm talking about it, there is enough circumstantial evidence there for it. You're never going to hear me talk about some of the more wild shit, right? Not here on the podcast. Unless, of course, on a Sunday you want to pop into the live stream for that open forum, then I'll talk about whatever you want. But adding it to the catalog here on the podcast, I'm very particular about that. The first confidential client we looked at was Mukhtar Ablazov, a Kazakh national who has lived in exile for more than 10 years and is accused by Kazakh authorities of having embezzled billions of dollars during his tenure as chairman of a bank. Ablazov has appeared in a number of previous ICIJ investigations. In the FinCen files, his companies were mentioned in suspicious activity reports filed by 7 different banks. This gave us an inclination that it was a good profile to focus on. Yeah, you think? 7 different banks think that this guy's up to no good? Usually where there's smoke, there's a little bit of fire, right? So I think that that's a pretty good baseline to use to initiate an investigation. In the FinCen files, his companies were mentioned in suspicious activity reports filed by 7 different banks. This gave us an inclination that it was a good profile to focus on. Not only were we able to review the bank's reports, but we also had access to FinCen's own summary reports about Ablazov, which provided additional background information. So they were using their own information that they had previously to cross-check the new information in the SARS. And I can't tell you how many times I do that with the stories that we talk about here. You know, go through them, cross-check them, and see if they all line up. One thing that we run into in the Epstein case, though, is that one outlet will run a story, and then all of the other outlets will piggyback on top of that outlet and run the same story. Pretty lazy journalism, if you ask me. But because the suspicious activity reports came from numerous banks filed over the course of several years, we ran the risk of having multiple banks reporting the same transactions. Different banks can be involved in the same transaction, or a series of transactions can partly intersect with another series reported by another institution. This risk of double counting also existed when banks filed multiple reports and failed to explain what transactions they had included in previous reports. So, again, is that the banks just being lazy, or are they doing that on purpose to make it easier for them to mask these transactions so nobody can follow this stuff? And so it makes it harder for people to put things in place. We had to cross-reference the transaction data from the suspicious activity reports, the transaction spreadsheets, and FinCen's own reports to be able to identify and set aside potentially duplicate records. So in other words, they did a lot of work to get the FinCen files out to us. And again, all of the journalists involved over here at the consortium, they all should be commended. And again, I don't agree with all of their work on all of the other subjects they talk about, but guess what? That's okay. I don't have to agree with everything somebody says or does to respect them or to respect the work that they do. And if you find yourself living in an echo chamber where every single person has to align with every single thing you agree with, that sounds like a you problem. The data needed more data. Because so many of the rich and powerful rely on shell companies, including for legal reasons, it is often very difficult to identify the individuals that ultimately benefit from operating those companies. Hopefully, the new money laundering legislation is going to address this. Now again, I'm not too confident that it's going to have the teeth needed, but it's a start. It's better than what we had in place, and hopefully the Democrats now, they have the whole show, right? There's no excuse. I don't want to hear any excuses being made for these people if there's no good, strong laws. Just like if they do the right thing and they enact all of these laws and they're strong and they pursue the Epstein folks in a very fast manner, then I'll give them props as well. But, let's not act like things are going to move at such a fast pace now. Because I have my reservations. How many of these newly elected officials, people on 46's cabinet, are involved with the financial sector? Not very hard to find out. Very easy, in fact. How many of them graduated from Harvard? The U.S. banks themselves sometimes have a hard time tracking those ultimate beneficial owners, or UBOs, as shown in the FinCen files. We had to research what companies were owned by each of the individuals portrayed in the files and check whether we had additional transactions in the data tied to those companies which hadn't been identified by the banks. So again, a lot of cross-referencing, a lot of good, hard journalism being done here. You're not going to see that in the major outlets. You're not going to see that in the major outlets anymore at all. The editorial room is completely and utterly toothless, and they're all in bed with the intelligence agencies and huge business. I don't know how anyone can deny that fact at this point. This happened for transactions tied to Isabel dos Santos, which Standard Chartered flagged as part of a report about various companies called Unitel. Thanks to our previous Luanda Leaks investigation, we were able to identify the transactions that were relevant to the Unitel company, partly owned by Isabel dos Santos, and include this amount in her confidential client's profile. So again, if you're not familiar with all of the leaks that have come before the FinCen files, I urge you to check them all out. The Luanda leaks, the Panama Papers, the Paradise Files, all of it. And of course, WikiLeaks. We came across several other cases where banks reported suspicious transactions we could tie to one of the confidential clients through outside research, such as Oleg Deripaska, a Russian businessman whose companies used accounts at Expo Bank in Latvia. Deripaska, huh? Sounds like a defenseman in the NHL. The Bank of New York Mellon reported suspicious transactions to FinCen that included Deripaska companies using the Latvian bank, but the U.S. bank didn't report about Deripaska directly. Of course not. I don't want to seem like I'm just hammering overseas banks, because that's certainly not the case. I am certainly of the mind that I need to worry about my backyard, meaning what's going on here in America, before I can really point my finger and try and judge elsewhere. So the banking system here in America needs to be cleaned up, and these sons of bitches that let people like Deripaska run around and do whatever they want need to be held accountable. It's only through contextualizing the documents that the profiles could be built. Thankfully, we could rely on a network of knowledgeable media partners to help with that contextualization, and also on ICIJ's access to previous data leaks. Finally, ICIJ reached out for comment to the individuals, companies, and banks mentioned in the confidential clients interactive, including those that were part of the transactions we chose to visualize with each client. In some cases, their responses helped contextualize and inform our reporting. In all cases, we included their responses alongside their profiles. So there you have it, folks. That's a little behind-the-scenes look into how a real investigative journalism project is done, how real investigative journalists conduct themselves. My question to you is, how much longer does the ICIJ have? How much longer do journalists like these people, these brave journalists who broke this story, have before they are also facing being deplatformed? What, you think the elites are just going to stop with the crazies? Of course not. The power grab is on, folks. And these people, all of these elites that use the banks and use the financial system to launder money, to have operations like Jeffrey Epstein's go on throughout the decades, 4 decades, well, these people are finally on their heels. These people finally are no longer in control of the narrative, and you see how desperate they are to get that control back. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on that cesspool we call Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. And to everybody who has donated to the podcast, thank you folks so much. And if you really want to help the podcast out some more, make sure you are sharing it with all of your friends. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow, maybe a little bit later than usual, but there will be a morning update. And we'll pick it back up where we left off.
Gearing up for the warmer days ahead? If that includes shopping for a reliable new car, SUV, or truck, there's no better time or place than Toyota's We Make It Easy sales event. You'll find great deals like huge cash back offers, low APRs, and low payment leases on many of Toyota's most popular models, including Camry, Corolla, Prius Prime, Highlander, and even Supra. So see your Toyota dealer today. We make it easy. Toyota, let's go places.